They say silence is golden. They're liars. I learned the truth about silence 6 years ago when meningitis stole my hearing at 19. Silence isn't peaceful. It's suffocating. It's watching mouths move with no sound, feeling vibrations through floorboards when someone slams a door in anger, seeing laughter but never hearing the joy in it. But you know what's worse than silence? Hearing everything when people think you can't. My name is Olivia, and this is the story of how my 25th birthday became the day I stopped being deaf and started listening to the truth. The restaurant glittered with candlelight, each flame dancing shadows across the faces of the people I thought I loved. My boyfriend Tyler had planned everything perfectly, or so I believed. The private dining room overlooked the city, glass walls revealing the sprawl of lights below like scattered diamonds. "Make a wish, babe," my best friend Jessica signed, her hands moving with the familiar gestures that had become our language. She gestured toward the birthday cake they'd wheeled in, 25 candles flickering. I smiled, closed my eyes, and wished for the one thing I'd wanted for 6 years. To hear again. To hear Tyler tell me he loved me. To hear Jessica's laugh that I remembered as bright and infectious. To hear music, rain, birdsong, all the small symphonies I'd lost. The surgery had been a long shot. Experimental. Dr. Reeves had warned me the chances were slim, maybe 15%. But last week, 7 days before this moment, I'd woken up to the sound of my own breathing. The whoosh of air through my lungs. The rustle of sheets. The blessed, beautiful noise of existence. I hadn't told anyone yet. The doctor wanted to monitor me for 2 weeks before making it official. And part of me, the scared, superstitious part, was afraid that if I spoke it aloud, the miracle would vanish. Sound would disappear again like smoke. So I kept wearing my hearing aids. Kept signing. Kept living in my silent world while secretly drowning in the noise of reality. I blew out the candles and everyone clapped. I felt the vibrations through the table, played my part perfectly. Then Tyler stood up, his hand reaching for my face, fingers moving toward my hearing aids. My heart stopped. This wasn't the first time he'd removed them. Sometimes during intimate moments he'd gently take them out, kiss my ears, tell me things he thought I couldn't hear. Sweet nothings I'd imagined. Promises whispered into the void of my disability. But this time, as his fingers unhooked the first device, I heard him say, "Everyone ready? Time for the show." The show. Not the moment. Not the proposal. The show. My blood turned to ice, but I kept my face neutral, my smile soft. He removed the second hearing aid, placed both devices carefully on the white tablecloth beside my wine glass. Everyone was watching, their faces glowing with anticipation. And then Tyler dropped to one knee. His mouth moved, forming words, and this time, for the first time, I heard every single syllable. "Olivia, you've made me the happiest man alive," he said, his voice dripping with a sincerity that would have fooled anyone watching. "Will you marry me?" Tears sprang to my eyes. Real tears. Because for a moment, despite everything, I felt the joy I'd always imagined for this moment. Then he glanced at the others and I watched his expression shift. Just slightly. Just enough. "Christ, she's actually crying," he muttered under his breath, barely moving his lips. "Jessica, you owe me $50. Told you she'd buy it completely." The words hit me like bullets. Jessica laughed. Actually laughed. That sound I'd longed to hear again. But it wasn't the bright, infectious sound I remembered. It was cruel. Bucking. Sharp as broken glass. "Oh my God, Tyler, look at her face. She really thinks you love her." My hand froze halfway to my mouth. The tears on my cheeks turned from joy to something else entirely. Something hot and poisonous. "Keep it together," Tyler whispered through his smile, still on one knee, ring box open. "Just until I get the photos. My parents need to think this is real until the will is finalized." The will. His parents' will. Everything clicked into place with sickening clarity. Tyler's parents, Margaret and Stephen, had always loved me. Margaret especially had taken me under her wing after I lost my hearing, treating me like the daughter she'd never had. 6 months ago, Stephen had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I'd held Margaret's hand through her tears, sat with them during treatment, brought meals when they were too exhausted to cook. Last month, Tyler had casually mentioned his parents were updating their will. He'd seemed oddly pleased about it, but I'd thought nothing of it at the time. Now I understood. They were leaving him everything, but only if he was settled, married to someone they approved of. Someone like me. The deaf girl who'd shown such strength, such grace. The girl Margaret said made her son a better man. How long are we talking? That was my other friend, Rachel, her voice carrying easily in the quiet room. I've got a date at 10. Just through dinner, Tyler said, still smiling at me like I was the center of his universe. Then she can cry her little deaf heart out at home, and I'll feed her some bullshit about cold feet in the morning. Brutal man. My coworker Jake from the marketing firm. I thought he was a decent guy. You sure she won't catch on? Tyler actually laughed. Standing now, pulling me up with him, the ring box still open between us. Catch on? She's deaf, not smart. Girl believes every word I sign to her. It's almost too easy. The ring glittered in the candlelight. Cubic zirconia, I realized now. Not even real. Besides, Tyler continued, slipping the fake ring onto my finger while I stood frozen, once my dad kicks it, doctors give him 3 months tops. I'll get my inheritance, dump her, and finally take that trip to Bali with Madison. Madison. His yoga instructor. Speaking of, Jessica said, and I could hear her digging through her purse. Madison sent these. I watched Jessica pass her phone around. Heard their laughter increase. Watched Tyler's smirk grow wider as he glanced at the screen. Damn, she looks good, Jake said. Better than this one? Rachel asked, gesturing at me like I was furniture. Tyler looked at me then. Really looked at me. And I saw the truth I'd been blind to for 3 years. There was nothing in his eyes. No love. No warmth. Just cold calculation and thinly veiled contempt. Madison actually makes an effort, he said. This one stopped trying years ago. Got comfortable. Plus, and don't take this the wrong way, Liv, he added as if I could hear him, his hands not moving to sign. The deaf thing is kind of a buzzkill. Like I have to repeat everything and the sex is just quiet. Weird. More laughter. The kind that cuts. My hands were shaking. My entire body was shaking. But my face remained perfectly composed. Perfectly deaf and perfectly unaware. So what's the timeline? Jessica asked. She'd been my best friend since college. She'd held me when I cried after losing my hearing. She'd learned to sign for me. Or so I'd thought. Now I wondered if she'd only learned enough to manipulate me. 3 months, maybe 4. Once the money's in my account, I'll stage a fight, tell her I can't handle the disability long-term and bounce. She'll be heartbroken, but, Tyler shrugged. She'll move on eventually. Deaf girls need love too, right? They thought that was hilarious. I stood there, fake ring on my finger, surrounded by people I'd trusted with my heart, and felt something inside me not break, but crystallize. Harden. Transform into something sharp and unforgiving. My wine glass sat on the table, full of deep red Cabernet. Tyler had ordered it special, told me through signs that it was my favorite, which it wasn't. He'd never actually asked what I liked. I picked up the glass carefully. Took a small step closer to Tyler. Everyone was still laughing, still passing around pictures of Madison, still enjoying their private joke at my expense. I thought about Margaret and Stephen. About how Margaret had cried in my arms last week, telling me how grateful she was that her son had found someone like me. Someone real. Someone who loved him for who he was, not what he had. I thought about the 3 years I'd spent with Tyler. The moments I'd treasured. The signs of love I'd misread because I was desperate to be wanted despite my disability. I thought about how they'd all played their parts perfectly. Jessica pretending to be my best friend. Rachel acting concerned about my well-being. Jake being the supportive coworker. All of them lying every single day because they knew I couldn't hear them. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Then I lifted the wine glass and poured the entire contents over Tyler's head. The room went absolutely silent. The real kind of silence, not the fake kind I'd been living in. Red wine cascaded down Tyler's face, dripping off his nose, staining his crisp white shirt, the expensive one he'd bought specifically for the proposal photos. His mouth hung open in shock, eyes wide, frozen mid-laugh. Everyone stared at me, and I smiled. "Did you really think," I said, my voice rusty from years of not using it, but clear and strong, "that I wouldn't hear you?" Tyler's face went from red wine-stained to bone-white in seconds. "That's impossible," Jessica whispered, her face a portrait of dawning horror. "You're deaf." "Was deaf," I corrected, touching my ear where the hearing aid sat, cosmetic now. Past tense. I had surgery 3 weeks ago. Fully healed last Wednesday. Funny timing, right? Just in time for my birthday. I watched the implications sink in. Watched them realize I'd heard everything. Every word. Every laugh. Every cruel joke. Liv, Tyler started, wine still dripping down his collar. Don't, I said, holding up one hand. Don't you dare say my name with that lying mouth. I pulled the cubic zirconia ring off my finger and dropped it into the puddle of wine on the white tablecloth. 3 years, I said, looking at each of them in turn. 3 years of my life and you were all in on it? Every single one of you. Rachel had the grace to look ashamed. Jake wouldn't meet my eyes. Jessica just stared, her perfectly made-up face crumbling. But Tyler's shock was morphing into something else. Something dangerous. How much did you hear? He asked slowly. I smiled wider, feeling my teeth show. Everything. Starting with, time for the show, and ending with, deaf girls need love too. Every single word. Liv, let me explain. Explain what? How you've been using me to manipulate your dying father. How you're cheating on me. How you've been counting down the days until you can take the money and run. My voice was getting louder, stronger. Or maybe you want to explain how my best friend has been betting on my gullibility? Jessica flinched. This is insane, Tyler said, trying to regain control. You're misinterpreting. Your words. The ones I heard perfectly. With my fully functional ears. I laughed and it felt like breaking glass. Tell me, Tyler, how exactly do you misinterpret she's deaf, not smart? He had no answer. I grabbed my purse, pulled out my phone and held it up. The best part. I recorded everything. From the moment you said, time for the show, to right before I baptized you in Cabernet. Every confession. Every laugh. Every disgusting word. The blood drained from all their faces. You wouldn't, Tyler said. Wouldn't what? Send it to your parents? To HR at my company where Jake works? Post it online? Email it to Madison? I tilted my head. You're right, I wouldn't do any of those things. Relief flickered across his features. I already did. Sent it to your mother 5 minutes ago. While you were all comparing me to Madison, I was sitting here, recording and typing. She should be calling you right about. Tyler's phone exploded with sound. His mother's ringtone. His hand trembled as he looked at the screen. That's what I thought, I said softly. See, Margaret checks her messages constantly. Especially anything about you. And I included a very detailed message explaining exactly what I just learned. About the will. The plan. Everything. Tyler's face went from white to gray. You bastard. My father is dying and you're going to stress them out with this. I'm going to stress them out? My voice cracked, emotion finally bleeding through. Your father is dying and you were planning to scam him? To use his love for you, his trust in me, to steal from him. It's my inheritance. It's his money. To give to whoever he chooses. And he chose you, on the condition that you were the man he thought you were. I was shaking again, but not from fear. From rage. You were willing to let him die thinking his son was good and decent and in love. When really you're just a parasite waiting for your host to finally stop breathing. The phone kept ringing. Tyler didn't answer it. You know what the saddest part is? I asked, my voice dropping. I actually loved you. The real me loved the fake you. I would have done anything for you. But you couldn't even respect me enough to be honest. You had to mock me. Humiliate me. Make me into a joke for your friends. Olivia, please, Jessica tried. Don't, I cut her off. You lost the right to say my name when you decided my disability made me fair game. I looked at each of them one last time. These people who'd shared my life, my secrets, my vulnerabilities. Who'd smiled to my face while plotting behind my back. I hope you all get exactly what you deserve, I said. Then I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, leaving them to their explanations, their panic, their ruined plans. I didn't know it then, but that was only the beginning. Because revenge, I was about to learn, is a dish best served with patience, planning, and absolutely no mercy. And I had just taken the first bite. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. The night air hit my face like a slap, cold and sharp. I walked 3 blocks before my legs gave out and I found myself sitting on a bench at the edge of Madison Park, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed constantly. Text after text after text. Tyler, Olivia, please answer. We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. Jessica, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Please call me. Rachel, what you heard wasn't the full context. Jake, this is going to blow over. No reason to make it worse. And then the one that made my hands ball into fist. Tyler, if you don't delete that recording, you're going to regret it. A threat. Of course it was a threat. I blocked all of them. Every single number. Then I opened my email and found 17 new messages. Most were from Tyler, increasingly desperate. One was from Margaret. My hands shook as I opened it. Olivia, I just listened to your recording. I've listened to it 3 times now because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm sitting here with Steven and we're both in shock. We trusted Tyler with everything. With you. We thought he'd finally become the man we'd prayed he would be. I told you last week how proud I was of him, how he'd changed since meeting you. What a fool I've been. Steven wants you to know that the will is being changed immediately. Tyler will receive nothing except what the law mandates. Everything else is going to the Cancer Research Foundation in our name. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. For everything. For my son's cruelty. For what he put you through. You deserved so much better. Please come see us when you're ready. You'll always be welcome in our home even if our son isn't. With love, Margaret. I sat on that bench and cried. Real, ugly, gasping sobs that tore out of my chest like something living. People walked past, some stopping to ask if I was okay, but I couldn't answer. Couldn't speak. Could only sit there and feel the full weight of the betrayal crushing down on me. 3 years. 3 years of lies. How many times had Tyler told me he loved me, his hands moving in careful signs, his face so earnest? How many times had Jessica hugged me, promised me we'd always be sisters, sworn she'd never let anyone hurt me? How many times had I sat in their presence, deaf and trusting, while they laughed at me? The cruelty wasn't just in the betrayal. It was in the exploitation of my disability. They'd used my deafness as a weapon against me, a shield for their deception. They'd made me feel like my disability made me less worthy of truth, less deserving of respect. That was the part that burned hottest. The ableism underneath all of it. The assumption that being deaf made me stupid, made me easy to manipulate, made me less than human. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Olivia. A woman's voice, unfamiliar. My name is Teresa Langford. I'm an attorney with Whitmore and Associates. Margaret Richardson contacted me on your behalf. I don't understand, I said. Margaret wants to ensure you're protected. Legally speaking, Tyler could claim defamation regarding the recording you shared. The audio itself might be considered a violation of privacy laws depending on your state's recording consent requirements. She's concerned he might try to retaliate. My stomach dropped. I hadn't thought about that. I'd been so angry, so hurt that I'd just acted. However, Teresa continued, after reviewing your situation, I believe we have a strong defense. You were recording a conversation you were part of in a semi-public space. Additionally, the content reveals potential criminal behavior, specifically conspiracy to commit fraud regarding the manipulation of a will. That gives us significant leverage. I can't afford a lawyer, I said quietly. Margaret has retained our services on your behalf. Consider it handled. I closed my eyes. Even in her grief, even dealing with Steven's illness and Tyler's betrayal, Margaret was trying to protect me. There's more, Teresa said. Margaret mentioned you work at Quantum Marketing, correct? Yes. Jake Thornton is also employed there. Given what's on that recording, you may have grounds for a hostile work environment complaint. I'd like to schedule a meeting with you and your HR department. Everything was moving so fast. Too fast. I need time, I said. I need to think. Of course. But Olivia, don't let them intimidate you. You did nothing wrong. They did. Remember that. After we hung up, I sat on that bench for another hour, watching the city lights blur through my tears, listening to the sounds I'd missed for so long. Car horns. Distant sirens. The rustle of leaves in the park behind me. A couple arguing half a block away. A street musician playing guitar with his case open for change. All the noise of life that I'd dreamed about during my years of silence. And all I felt was empty. I didn't go home that night. The apartment I shared with Tyler felt contaminated now, full of memories that had turned poisonous. Instead, I checked into a hotel downtown, a small boutique place where no one would think to look for me. The room was quiet. Actually quiet, not the imposed silence of deafness. I could hear the hum of the air conditioning, the muffled sounds of other guests, the distant rumble of traffic. Each sound felt like a small miracle and a massive burden simultaneously. I ordered room service, though I couldn't eat. Then I opened my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding since gaining my hearing back. I listened to my voicemails. 6 years of messages, saved but never heard. My mother's voice wishing me happy birthday the year I lost my hearing, her tone so worried. Friends checking in during the early months. Tyler's first "I love you" left as a message because I'd missed his call. I started with the most recent and worked backward. Tyler's messages from the past 6 months were revealing in retrospect. His tone shifted depending on whether he thought I might somehow hear them versus when he was just leaving a perfunctory message. The ones where he was careful, loving, sweet. Those were the lies. The ones where he sounded irritated, rushed, dismissive. Those were the truth. There was one from last month. "Hey, stuck in traffic. Don't wait up. Also, did you remember to send that card to my mom? She's all over my ass about." Click. He'd hung up mid-sentence, probably remembering I couldn't hear it anyway. And there, buried 3 months back, was a message that made my blood run cold. Madison's voice. "Tyler, baby, you left your watch at my place. The expensive one. You should grab it before your deaf girlfriend notices it's missing. Call me later. Love you." She'd called my number by mistake. Probably had both our numbers saved and hit the wrong contact. I sat there staring at the playback bar on my phone screen. This wasn't new betrayal. This was old betrayal, finally revealed. He'd been cheating for at least 3 months, probably longer. And I'd been completely unaware, unable to hear the evidence that any hearing person would have caught immediately. That's when the real plan started forming. Not the angry, impulsive revenge of exposing them. That was done. The recording was out. Margaret and Stephen knew the truth. Tyler's inheritance was gone. No, this was going to be something else. Something surgical. Something that hurt as much as they'd hurt me. I opened a new document on my laptop and started typing. Targets. 1. Tyler Richardson primary 2. Jessica Monroe 3. Rachel Thompson 4. Jake Thornton. For each name I started a list. Their vulnerabilities. Their secrets. The things I knew about them from 3 years of friendship and trust that they'd now regret sharing. Tyler was easy. His career at his father's company was entirely based on nepotism. He'd been promoted 3 times not because of skill but because Stephen believed in giving his son chances. Without his father's protection and with his inheritance gone, Tyler had nothing. His apartment was funded by a trust from his parents. His car was a gift. Even his expensive clothes came from Stephen's credit card. Strip away the family money, and Tyler was just an incompetent middle manager with no real skills and a resume full of inflated achievements. Jessica was more interesting. She'd confided in me last year about her teaching certification, specifically about how she'd cheated on the licensing exam. She'd been terrified, certain she'd be caught. I'd reassured her, helped her through the anxiety. Her entire career was built on a fraudulent credential. Rachel worked in pharmaceutical sales and had once drunkenly told me about her side business selling prescription medication to friends without prescriptions. She'd laughed about it, called it helping people out. It was illegal and she'd given me names. Jake was the most careful of them all, but he'd made one critical mistake. During a company party, he'd shown me emails from a competitor, confidential information he'd received from an ex-girlfriend who still worked there. Insider trading wasn't his game, but corporate espionage definitely was. He'd used that information to win a major account for our firm, earning himself a promotion. I typed it all out, every detail I could remember. Then I started cross-referencing. Whom? Who had leverage over whom? Where were the pressure points? My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I answered cautiously. Olivia. A young woman's voice, nervous. "I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from my mom. I'm Sarah Richardson, Tyler's younger sister." I'd never met Sarah. She'd been away at college overseas and Tyler rarely mentioned her. The golden child didn't like being reminded his parents had another, more successful child. "Hi," I said carefully. "I just talked to Mom. She told me everything." Sarah's voice cracked. I'm so sorry. Tyler's always been difficult. But I never thought he'd do something like this. Use someone like this. Why are you calling? Because I want to help, she said. Mom and Dad are devastated. Dad's crying and he never cries. Mom looks like she's aged 10 years in one night. And Tyler? He's already threatening legal action saying you violated his privacy, that you manipulated them. My jaw clenched. Of course he is. He's also trying to convince them that you're lying. That the recording is somehow faked or taken out of context. Sarah paused. I told them about the other times. Other times. Tyler's done this before. Not exactly the same but similar. There was a girl freshman year of college. He dated her because her dad owned a car dealership, convinced her to get him a luxury car at cost, then dumped her the week after he got the title. Another girl whose family had a vacation house in Aruba. He stayed with them for 2 weeks, proposed, then broke up with her the day after they got back. My hands tightened on the phone. He has a pattern. A very clear pattern. He uses people for what they can give him, then discards them. But he's always been careful enough that no one could prove it. This time you caught him. Sarah's voice strengthened. And I want to make sure he actually faces consequences. Real ones. Not just losing his inheritance. What did you have in mind? I'm a paralegal at a firm in Boston. I specialize in fraud cases. And what Tyler did, convincing my parents to structure their will a certain way while lying about his intentions, that might actually be actionable. It's called undue influence and it's a form of elder abuse. My breath caught. Elder abuse? Dad has cancer. He's vulnerable. Tyler exploited that vulnerability to manipulate a legal document for his benefit. If we can prove intent, which we can thanks to your recording, we might be able to get him charged. Would your parents go along with that? Pressing charges against their own son. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Mom would. She's furious. Dad, he's heartbroken. But he's also a man of principle. If he thought Tyler committed a crime, he'd want justice. We talked for another hour. Sarah sent me documents, legal precedents, case files. She was thorough, meticulous, and absolutely ruthless when it came to her brother. He spent his whole life coasting on our parents' love and money, she told me. It's time he learned that actions have consequences. When we finally hung up, I had a much clearer picture of Tyler's history. The pattern of manipulation. The string of women he'd used. The lies he'd told their parents to cover his tracks. And I had an ally. Monday morning came too soon. I'd taken the weekend to move my essential belongings out of Tyler's apartment while he was gone. Where I didn't know and didn't care. His calls and text had stopped after I blocked him, but I'd seen his car circling the building several times like a shark. My new apartment was smaller, cheaper, in a less trendy neighborhood. But it was mine. No memories. No contamination. Walking into quantum marketing felt like stepping into a battlefield. I'd been at the company for 4 years, worked my way up to senior account manager despite my disability. Or maybe a small bitter voice whispered because of it. Maybe they'd promoted me to look progressive and inclusive while never expecting me to actually compete. The thought made me sick. Jake was already at his desk when I arrived. He looked up, caught my eye, and his face went pale. He quickly looked away, but I saw his hands shake as he grabbed his coffee cup. Good. Let him be scared. My desk was next to his. A quirk of the office layout I'd once thought was friendly. Now it felt strategic. I could see his computer screen if I angled my chair right. Could hear his phone conversations, something I'd never been able to do before. I sat down, logged in, and started working as if nothing had changed. As if I hadn't burned down my entire social circle 3 days ago. At 10 a.m., my computer pinged with a meeting invitation. HR. Conference Room 3. Lebanon. Jake saw it too, he was also invited. His face went from pale to green. The hour between the invitation and the meeting was excruciating. I could hear Jake making phone calls, his voice low and urgent. He kept using phrases like misunderstanding, and taken out of context, and hostile work environment. He was trying to get ahead of it. Build his own narrative. At 10:55, we both headed to the conference room. We didn't speak. Didn't even look at each other. Inside the room waited Brenda Kolsky, head of HR, and David Winters, our department director. Both looked serious. Brenda gestured for us to sit. Thank you both for coming, Brenda said, her tone professionally neutral. We've received some concerning information regarding workplace conduct, and we need to address it immediately. Jake leaned forward. Before you continue, I want to state for the record that anything said outside of work hours in a private setting is not company business. I have a right to privacy. Mr. Thornton, David cut him off, we're not here to debate privacy rights. We're here to discuss behavior that directly impacts this workplace. Brenda opened a folder. Olivia, you submitted a formal complaint on Friday evening regarding comments made by Mr. Thornton about your disability. You also provided audio evidence of these comments. Is that correct? Yes, I said. Jake's jaw dropped. You complained? Are you kidding me? This is revenge because you're embarrassed about Tyler. Mr. Thornton, Brenda's voice was sharp. I need you to remain silent until asked to speak. She pressed a button on her laptop and suddenly the conference room filled with sound. My recording. The section where Jake had participated. She's deaf, not smart. Girl believes every word I sign to her. It's almost too easy. Damn, she looks good. Better than this one? Madison actually makes an effort. This one stopped trying years ago. Jake's voice, laughing along with the others. Making jokes. Dehumanizing me. The recording stopped. Silence filled the room, the uncomfortable kind. Mr. Thornton, David said slowly, can you explain this? It was a joke, Jake said desperately. A bad joke in poor taste, but just a joke. We were all drinking and... You made derogatory comments about a colleague's disability, Brenda said. You participated in conversation that explicitly mocked Ms. Summers for being deaf. You compared her negatively to another woman. And according to the full recording, you did all of this knowing she couldn't hear you. The full recording shows I barely said anything. Jake protested. This is mostly Tyler and Jessica. I just laughed a few times. You participated, David said. That's enough. Additionally, Brenda continued, pulling out another document, we've been conducting a separate investigation into the Anders account. The one you won last quarter. Jake's face went from green to gray. We received an anonymous tip last week suggesting improper conduct regarding how you obtained information about their needs and budget. We've since subpoenaed emails that confirm you received confidential information from a source at their previous marketing firm. I can explain. Corporate espionage, Mr. Thornton. You used illegally obtained information to win a client. David stood up. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to pack your belongings. Your final paycheck will be mailed. Jake looked at me and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. You did this. You reported me. No, I said calmly. I reported your behavior at my birthday dinner. The investigation into your corporate espionage was apparently already underway. Interesting timing though. It was a lie. I'd sent the anonymous tip myself Friday night, using a burner email account and including just enough information to point them in the right direction. Teresa, the lawyer Margaret hired, had advised me on exactly how to word it to avoid legal blowback. Jake opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. This is bullshit. You're destroying lives because your feelings got hurt. No, I said. I'm holding people accountable for their actions. There's a difference. Security arrived. Jake was escorted out, still protesting, still insisting it was all a misunderstanding. After he left, Brenda turned to me. I want you to know that we take workplace discrimination extremely seriously. The comments made about your disability are unacceptable, and we should have fostered an environment where you felt safe reporting concerns earlier. Thank you, I said. We're also prepared to offer support services, counseling if needed. And if you're uncomfortable remaining in your current team given the circumstances, we can discuss transfers. I thought about it. About running away, hiding, letting them win by making me the one who had to change. No, I said. I like my team. I'm good at my job. I'm not going anywhere. David actually smiled. Good. We'd hate to lose you. You're one of our best. As I left the conference room, I felt something shift inside me. The first domino had fallen. Jake was gone, his career in ruins, facing potential legal charges for corporate espionage. 1 down. 3 to go. Jessica was harder to reach. After blocking her, I'd cut off her direct line to me. But I knew her routines, her patterns. Knew that she taught 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary, that she had lunch duty on Tuesdays, that she always stopped at the same coffee shop before school. I didn't want to confront her. I wanted something more permanent. Tuesday morning I dressed carefully, professional but approachable, and drove to the State Education Department building downtown. I'd made an appointment using a fake name, claiming I needed to verify a teacher's credentials for a private school application. The clerk was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and sensible shoes. "How can I help you?" "I'm considering several private tutors for my nephew," I said, lying smoothly. "One of them, Jessica Monroe, says she's state certified. I just want to verify her credentials before I hire her." "Of course. Let me look that up." She typed into her computer. "Monroe. Jessica Monroe. Here we are. She received her certification 3 years ago. All current and valid." "May I see the actual certificate?" I asked. "I'm sorry to be difficult, but we've had issues with fraud before." "Not difficult at all. It's smart to verify." She printed out the official document and handed it to me. "This is a copy of her certification. You can see the exam scores here. She passed with high marks." I looked at the scores. Perfect scores in several sections. Suspiciously perfect. "These are exceptional scores," I said carefully. "I'm actually quite impressed. She must have studied very hard." The clerk smiled. "We're proud of our teachers. High standards make for good education." I left with the document and drove straight to a cybersecurity specialist I'd found through Sarah. His name was Liam and he looked exactly like I'd imagined. Hoodie, multiple monitors, energy drinks scattered across his desk. "You want me to find evidence of cheating on a state exam?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "That's a big ask. Those systems are supposed to be secure." "Supposed to be," I agreed. But Jessica told me she bought the answers from a test prep company that had access to the real questions. She was drunk when she told me, terrified she'd be caught, but she gave me details. The company name was EDU Prep Solutions. Liam's fingers were already flying across his keyboard. EDU Prep Solutions. Got it. They were shut down 2 years ago for exactly that. Selling real exam questions. There was a whole scandal. He pulled up articles. Says here they had someone inside the testing center who leaked the questions. So if Jessica used them, her scores would match other people who also used them? Exactly. And if I can find the leaked question set. More typing. Okay, this is interesting. The State Education Board kept records of suspected cheating cases. They flagged accounts that had unusual answer patterns, like perfect scores in sections that usually trip people up. He turned one of his monitors toward me. A list of names, all flagged for investigation but never pursued due to lack of evidence. Jessica Monroe was on the list. "Can you get me the details of her exam?" I asked. "Technically no," Liam said. "But if someone were to submit a formal complaint about suspected credential fraud, the state board would be required to investigate. And if they investigated, they'd pull these exact records." "How would someone submit a complaint?" He slid a piece of paper toward me. "Anonymously. Online portal. Just need to provide enough specific information to justify an investigation." I spent the next hour with Liam crafting the perfect complaint. We included the EDU prep connection, the timing of her certification, the flagged status of her account. We made it detailed enough to be credible but vague enough about the source. "This will trigger an automatic review," Liam said. "They'll pull her exam, compare it to the leaked questions, check her answer patterns against known cheaters. If she used those test answers, they'll find it. And then, revoked certification. She'll lose her teaching license. Possibly face criminal charges for fraud." I submitted the complaint that evening. Used a VPN, a burner email, covered my tracks carefully. Then I waited. 2 weeks later, Jessica's world exploded. I saw it first on social media. One of her teacher friends posted, "Can't believe what's happening to Jessica. So unfair. She's such a dedicated teacher." Then another, "Riverside Elementary lost a good one today. This system is broken." I did some digging. Found a local news article dated that morning. "Local teacher loses certification in testing scandal fallout." The article detailed how Jessica Monroe had been found to have used fraudulently obtained test questions for her certification exam. The state board had revoked her license pending a full investigation. Riverside Elementary had terminated her employment immediately. Her carefully built career gone in a single day. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. You did this. Jessica's voice raw with tears. I know it was you. Who else would know? I don't know what you're talking about, I said calmly. Don't lie. You're the only person I told about EDU prep. You're destroying everyone who was at that dinner. I'm not destroying anyone, I said. I'm just helping the truth come to light. You destroyed yourself when you decided to cheat. I needed that job. I have student loans, rent, You needed it, I repeated. So you cheated. Built your entire career on a lie. Tell me, Jessica, how many kids did you teach? How many parents trusted you with their children, believing you were qualified? She was sobbing now. You're being cruel. I'm being fair, I corrected. You cheated. You got caught. You face consequences. That's not cruelty. That's justice. Tyler was right about you, she spat. You're vindictive, Anne. I hung up. Blocked the number. Went back to work. 2 down. Rachel was more careful than the others. After Jake's firing and Jessica's certification scandal, she'd clearly realized she might be next. She deleted all her social media, changed her phone number, even moved apartments. But she couldn't change her job. She needed the pharmaceutical sales position at Meridian Health Solutions. It was her income, her career, her identity. And it was built on illegal activity. I'd kept meticulous records over the years. Not because I was planning this, but because I was naturally organized. My phone had photos from parties, including one where Rachel's purse had spilled and her supply of illegal prescription pills had scattered across the table. She'd laughed it off, said they were for friends who couldn't afford doctors. At the time, I thought she was being generous. Helping people who needed medication but lacked insurance. Now I saw it for what it was. A felony. I contacted Teresa, the lawyer. I have evidence of someone illegally distributing prescription medication. What do I do with it? Report it to the proper authorities, Teresa said. In this case, that would be either the police or the state pharmacy board. Given the nature of the offense, I'd recommend the D. They handle prescription drug trafficking. That seems extreme. It's not. Prescription medication can be dangerous if not properly monitored by a doctor. She's not just breaking the law, she's potentially harming people. Teresa connected me with an agent at the DA. His name was Martinez and he took my statement seriously. I provided the photos, the names of people Rachel had supplied, the approximate dates. I also mentioned that Rachel worked in pharmaceutical sales, giving her access to sample medications. We'll investigate, Martinez said. If what you're saying is true, she's looking at federal charges. I'm not trying to ruin her life, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. I just want justice. Martinez suggested. Ma'am, you're not ruining her life. He did that herself. You're just making sure she doesn't continue to break the law. The investigation took 3 weeks. During that time, I heard nothing from Rachel directly, but through mutual acquaintances, I learned she was getting paranoid. Convinced someone was following her. Afraid to sell pills even to her regular customers. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know when. The raid happened on a Thursday afternoon. DA agents showed up at Meridian Health Solutions with a warrant. They seized her company laptop, her phone, her files. They interviewed her coworkers. They searched her office. And they found everything. Not just the illegal pill distribution, but evidence that she'd been stealing sample medications from the company for years. That she'd falsified records. That she'd sold controlled substances to dozens of people without prescriptions. Rachel was arrested at her desk, walked out in handcuffs while her colleagues watched. The company issued a statement. Meridian Health Solutions has zero tolerance for illegal activity. Ms. Thompson's employment has been terminated, and we are cooperating fully with federal investigators. I received an email from Martinez. We couldn't have built this case without your information. Ms. Thompson is facing multiple felony charges. Thank you for doing the right thing. I stared at that email for a long time. The right thing. Was it? Or was I just hurting them because they'd hurt me? But then I remembered Rachel's face at my birthday dinner. The mockery. The laughter. The complete lack of remorse as she participated in my humiliation. And I remembered all the people who might have been harmed by the pills she distributed without medical oversight. People who trusted her. Who thought she was helping. Just like I'd trusted all of them. 3 down. 1 to go. Tyler was different. Tyler wasn't just my ex-boyfriend. He was the architect of it all. The ringleader. The one who'd orchestrated my humiliation and planned to profit from manipulating his dying father. Taking him down required something more than exposing past crimes. It required dismantling his entire life, piece by piece, until he understood what it felt like to lose everything. I started with his job. Stephen Richardson owned Richardson Enterprises, a mid-sized import-export company. Tyler held the title of operations manager, a position that sounded impressive but was essentially fabricated. He showed up late, left early, and spent most of his time playing golf with clients. Before his parents learned the truth about the proposal, Tyler was untouchable. Stephen's beloved son. The heir apparent. After the recording, Stephen barely spoke to him. But Stephen was also dying. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 3 months if he was lucky. He didn't have the energy for a prolonged dismantling of his son's position. Margaret was focused on caring for Stephen, not corporate restructuring. So I went to Sarah. Stephen still owns the company, right? I asked during one of our weekly phone calls. Tyler can't make major decisions without his approval? Correct, Sarah said. Why? Because Tyler's been embezzling. The silence on the other end was heavy. Then, explain. I'd spent weeks digging through Tyler's digital footprint. He was lazy and arrogant, which meant he was also careless. He'd sent me photos from his office complaining about work. In the backgrounds of those photos were details. Papers on his desk, open files on his computer, post-it notes with passwords. With Liam's help, I'd pieced together a pattern. Tyler had been creating fake vendor accounts, approving payments to these non-existent companies, and funneling the money into personal accounts. It wasn't massive amounts. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. Spread over 3 years, it added up to nearly $200,000. He's been doing it since he got promoted to operations manager, I told Sarah. The accounting department doesn't catch it because he approves the payments himself. Stephen trusts him, so no one questions it. Sarah asked for evidence. I sent her everything. Screenshots, bank records, obtained through methods I didn't ask Liam to explain, forged vendor contracts. This is enough to prosecute, Sarah said slowly. But Dad, he's so sick, Olivia. I don't know if he can handle finding out Tyler's been stealing from him. He needs to know, I said. And Tyler needs to face consequences. Real ones. 3 days later, Stephen called a board meeting. Despite his illness, he attended in person, Margaret at his side, Sarah present via video call. Tyler showed up expecting a standard quarterly review. Instead, he found a table full of executives, the company's legal counsel, and a forensic accountant. Stephen's voice was weak but clear. Tyler, you're being removed from your position effective immediately. Additionally, the company is filing criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud. Tyler's face went white. What? Dad, this is a mistake. Someone's framing me. We have 3 years of evidence, the forensic accountant said, pulling up displays on the conference room screen. Fake vendors. Forged contracts. Direct deposits into accounts tied to you. It's not a mistake. Tyler looked around the room, desperate. His eyes landed on Margaret. Mom, you can't believe this. It's Olivia. She's trying to destroy me because I broke up with her. You didn't break up with her, Margaret said quietly. You used her. You lied to us, to her, to everyone. And apparently you've been stealing from your father while he's dying. I wasn't stealing. It's my company. I was just. You were an employee, the legal counsel cut in. You had no ownership stake. Every dollar you took was theft. Stephen looked at his son with an expression I recognized from the recording I'd heard in Margaret's voice. Heartbreak mixed with disgust. I gave you everything, Tyler. Every opportunity. Every chance to prove yourself. And you threw it away. All of it. For money you didn't even need. Dad, please. Security will escort you out. Your personal belongings will be mailed. If you attempt to enter this building again, you'll be arrested for trespassing. Stephen's voice cracked. I don't want to see you. Not at the hospital. Not at home. You're no longer welcome. Tyler was crying now, real tears, but they looked like anger more than remorse. You'll regret this. All of you. I'll sue for wrongful termination, for defamation, for... For what? Sarah's voice came through the video call, cold and precise. For catching you committing crimes? Please try. I'd love to add more evidence to the criminal case. Security arrived. Tyler fought them, screaming about betrayal, about conspiracy, about how this was all Olivia's fault. His voice echoed down the hallway as they dragged him out. After he was gone, Stephen slumped in his chair. Margaret put a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," Stephen said to the room at large. "My son may be a thief and a liar, but at least he won't continue to damage this company." I watched this unfold from Liam's computer, where he'd hacked into the building's security cameras at my request. It felt surreal watching the final domino fall. Tyler was fired, facing criminal charges, cut off from his family, his inheritance gone, his reputation destroyed. Everything he'd built his life on, gone in a single meeting. I should have felt victorious, satisfied, something. Instead I felt empty. 3 months passed. Jake was unemployable in marketing after word spread about his corporate espionage. Last I heard he was working retail at a big box store, barely making rent. Jessica lost her teaching career. She tried to appeal the certification revocation, but the evidence was too clear. She was working as a barista now, her education degree worthless, her reputation in education destroyed forever. Rachel was awaiting trial on 14 federal charges related to prescription drug trafficking. Her bail was set at $100,000, which she couldn't pay. She sat in county jail, and based on the prosecutor's timeline, she'd likely be there until her trial in 8 months. If convicted, she faced up to 20 years in federal prison. Tyler was also awaiting trial. Embezzlement, fraud, attempted inheritance fraud, and a dozen other charges that Sarah kept adding as they uncovered more of his misdeeds. His bail was set even higher. Unlike Rachel, he'd made bail, but only because a former college friend had taken pity on him. He was living in a studio apartment in the worst part of town, working as a delivery driver, his life completely dismantled. I destroyed them all. Systematically. Ruthlessly. Completely. And I felt nothing. My hearing was fully restored. I'd been cleared by Dr. Reeves to stop wearing the hearing aids entirely. I could hear everything. Every conversation, every whisper, every sound I'd missed for 6 years. But instead of joy, I felt hollow. Work was fine. I'd been promoted after Jake's departure, given his accounts and a raise. People treated me with a careful respect that felt more like fear than genuine regard. They'd seen what happened to people who crossed me. I'd become the cautionary tale. The deaf girl who heard everything and destroyed everyone who'd wronged her. My apartment was quiet. Actually quiet, not the false quiet of deafness. I could hear my neighbors arguing through the walls, could hear traffic outside, could hear my own heartbeat in the silence of night. And I was alone. Stephen died 6 weeks after Tyler's firing. The cancer had spread faster than expected. Margaret called me to tell me, her voice broken. "He asked about you at the end," she said. "Wanted to know if you were okay. If you'd found happiness. Did you tell him the truth?" "I told him you were strong," Margaret said. "That you were going to be fine." We both knew it was a lie. The funeral was small, private, immediate family only. Tyler wasn't invited. Sarah told me later that he'd shown up anyway, tried to force his way in, had to be escorted away by police. "He's completely unhinged," Sarah said. "He blames everyone but himself. Especially you. Is he dangerous?" "I don't know. He's desperate, angry, humiliated. That's a bad combination." I started looking over my shoulder, double-checking my locks, varying my routes to work. But the attack, when it came, wasn't physical. It was digital. Someone created a website. Professional-looking, detailed, compelling. It told a story about a vindictive woman who'd used a disability to garner sympathy, then systematically destroyed innocent people's lives over a misunderstanding. The website had photos of me, information about my past, details about Jake's firing, Jessica's certification loss, Rachel's arrest, Tyler's charges. It painted me as a master manipulator who'd recorded a private conversation illegally, then weaponized it to ruin lives. It went viral. Within days, I was internet famous for all the wrong reasons. Articles picked up the story, "Deaf Woman's Revenge Gone Too Far?" And When Victims Become Perpetrators, and The Ethics of Disproportionate Retaliation. Comment sections filled with opinions. Some people supported me, called what I'd done justified. But many more condemned me, said I'd gone too far, that I was as bad as the people I'd targeted. My social media filled with hate messages, death threats, doxing. People found out where I worked, where I lived. Quantum Marketing's phone lines lit up with calls demanding I be fired. Brenda called me into her office. We're getting pressure, she said. From clients, from other employees, from the public. This is becoming a liability. Are you firing me? No. But I need you to understand that the situation is precarious. If this continues to escalate, we may have to reconsider your position for the sake of the company. I left her office feeling the walls closing in. That night, someone spray-painted, "Vindictive Bitch," across my apartment building's entrance. My car's tires were slashed. My mailbox was filled with hate mail. I sat in my apartment listening to sirens outside, to neighbors gossiping about me in the hallway, to the ambient noise of a city that suddenly felt hostile. And I wondered if maybe they were right. If maybe I had gone too far. The recording had been justified. They'd mocked me, planned to use me, treated my disability like a weapon against me. They deserved to be exposed. But everything after? The calculated dismantling of their lives? The systematic destruction of their careers, their freedom, their futures? Had that been justice? Or just revenge dressed up in righteous clothing? My phone rang. Margaret. I saw the website, she said. Olivia, I'm so sorry. This is Tyler. I know it is. Can you prove it? No. But I know my son. This is exactly the kind of thing he'd do. She paused. Are you okay? I don't know, I admitted. I thought getting revenge would make me feel better. Vindicated. But I just feel empty. Revenge never fills the hole it's meant to, Margaret said softly. It just makes it bigger. Then what was I supposed to do? Just let them get away with it? No. But there's a difference between justice and vengeance. Justice is about making things right. Vengeance is about making things hurt. I thought about Jake working retail, struggling to survive. Jessica, her dreams of teaching children destroyed. Rachel sitting in jail, awaiting trial that could put her away for decades. Tyler living in squalor, facing prison time, estranged from his dying father. Had any of that made things right? Or had I just spread my pain around, made sure everyone heard as much as I did? I don't know how to fix this, I whispered. Maybe you can't, Margaret said. Maybe you just have to live with it. Learn from it. Be better going forward. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, listening to the sounds of my restored hearing. Car horns. Distant music. People laughing somewhere above me. All the sounds I'd longed for during my years of silence. And all I wanted was quiet. The website continued to grow. More articles. More commentary. More hate. Teresa, the lawyer Margaret had hired, tried to get it taken down. It's defamation, potentially libel, definitely harassment. But tracking down who created it is proving difficult. They've hidden behind VPNs and anonymous domain registration. It's Tyler, I said. We all know it's Tyler. Knowing and proving are different things. Without proof, we can't take legal action. I started therapy. Not because I thought it would help, but because I was desperate for someone to talk to. My therapist, Dr. Chin, was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Tell me about the recording, she said during our first session. I told her everything. The birthday dinner. The hearing restoration I'd kept secret. The words I'd heard. The wine I'd poured. The recording I'd made and shared. You felt betrayed, she said. I was betrayed. Agreed. And you wanted justice. Yes. But did you get it? Do you feel justice was served? I opened my mouth. Closed it. Thought about Jake, Jessica, Rachel, Tyler. All of them suffering, their lives in ruins. I don't know, I finally said. Let me ask you this. If you could go back, would you do anything differently? I'd still expose them. They deserved that. And everything that came after? I thought about that for a long time. About the investigations I'd triggered. The lives I'd dismantled. The pain I'd caused. I don't know, I said again. That uncertainty is important, Dr. Chin said. It means you're still capable of empathy, of questioning your actions. You're not a sociopath seeking revenge without conscience. You're a hurt person who lashed out. That doesn't make it okay. No. But it makes it human. We spent the next several sessions unpacking it all. The trauma of losing my hearing. The isolation of disability. The betrayal of people I'd trusted. The rage that had fueled my revenge. You know what I think? Dr. Chen said during our 5th session. I think you need to talk to them. Not Tyler, he's dangerous and unstable. But the others. Jake, Jessica, Rachel. Hear their side. Why would I do that? Because right now they're caricatures to you. Villains in your story. But they're people too. Complicated, flawed people who made terrible choices. If you can see them as human, maybe you can find some peace. The idea terrified me. But it also felt necessary. I started with Jessica. She'd moved back to her parents' house, unable to afford her own place on barista wages. I found her contact information through Sarah, who had her own network of investigators. I sent a text, "Can we talk? In person. Just us." The reply came 3 hours later. Why? Because I need to understand. Understand what? How you destroyed my life. Understand why you destroyed mine first. We met at a neutral location, a park bench in the center of town, public enough to feel safe, quiet enough to talk. Jessica looked terrible. Thinner than I remembered, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She sat down but wouldn't look at me. "I'm not going to apologize for what I did," I said. "But I want to understand why you did what you did. Why I laughed at you." She laughed bitterly. "Because Tyler asked me to. Because he promised me money to help you trust him. Because I was drowning in student loans and desperate." The words hit me like ice water. "He paid you $500 a month to be your best friend. To learn sign language. To make you comfortable. To report back on what you were thinking, feeling, whether you suspected anything." My stomach turned. "I was a job to you. At first. But then," she finally looked at me. "Then I actually started to like you. You were kind and smart and funny, and I felt like shit every time I took his money. But I needed it so badly, and he kept saying it was fine, that you'd never know, that you'd be happy. Until my birthday. Until your birthday. When he decided the joke would be funnier if we all participated. If we all mocked you while you sat there, deaf and trusting." Tears started falling. I knew it was wrong. I knew it. But I laughed anyway because everyone else was laughing, and if I didn't, Tyler would cut me off. "So you chose money over me. I chose survival over you. That doesn't make it right, but that's the truth." She wiped her face. "I was a coward. I am a coward. And I'm sorry." The apology felt both meaningful and insufficient. "The teaching thing," I said. "That was real though. You did cheat." "I did. And I deserved to lose my license. But Olivia, I loved teaching. I was good at it despite how I got the job. Those kids deserved a qualified teacher, and I became one, even if I cheated to get there initially. That doesn't justify it." "No, it doesn't. But it's complicated, isn't it? We're all more complicated than just villains and victims." We sat in silence for a while, watching kids play on the playground, listening to their laughter. Something I could finally hear. "I don't forgive you," I said eventually. "I might never forgive you. But I understand you better now." "That's more than I deserve," Jessica said quietly. We parted ways without hugging, without promises to reconnect. But something had shifted. The rage I'd felt toward her had dulled into something more like sadness. I met with Jake next. He was angrier than Jessica, more defensive. "You ruined my career over a few dumb comments," he said. "I've worked retail for 3 months. Do you know what that's like after being a senior account manager? Do you know what it's like to sit at your birthday dinner and hear people you trusted mock your disability?" He looked away. "It was just talk. We didn't mean it." "You did mean it. That's the problem. You meant every word. You just didn't think I'd ever hear it. So you destroyed my life. I exposed your corporate espionage. You destroyed your own life." He had no response to that. Rachel I couldn't meet. She was still in jail awaiting trial, and she refused my request to visit. Her lawyer sent a message through Teresa. "Ms. Thompson feels that any communication with Ms. Summers would be detrimental to her mental health and potentially harmful to her case." Fair enough. I did learn more about her situation through Sarah, who had connections in the legal world. Rachel had been selling pills to people who genuinely couldn't afford health care, including a single mother whose child needed asthma medication. But she'd also been selling addictive painkillers to people fighting addiction, making their struggles worse for profit. Complicated. Everything was so complicated. 6 months after my birthday dinner, I stood in Margaret and Stephen's backyard, helping prepare for a memorial service. Stephen had passed 3 weeks ago peacefully with Margaret and Sarah by his side. Tyler had not been invited to the service. He was currently in jail awaiting trial, his bail revoked after he'd violated a restraining order by showing up at Margaret's house and trying to force his way in. The website had been traced back to him. Teresa had gathered enough evidence for a harassment lawsuit, which was proceeding alongside his criminal trials. My life had quieted down. The viral attention had faded as the internet moved on to new outrages. Quantum marketing had stood by me and I'd started rebuilding my reputation. But I was different now. Harder. More careful. Less trusting. Sarah approached me with a glass of lemonade. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay. How's your mom?" "Grieving. But relieved too, I think. Dad was in so much pain at the end." Sarah paused. "She wants to talk to you. After the service." Later, after the guests had left and the caterers had cleaned up, Margaret and I sat on her back porch watching the sun set. "I wanted to thank you," she said. "For what?" "For showing us who Tyler really was. If you hadn't, he would have inherited everything. Would have continued to lie and steal and hurt people." She looked at me. "You saved us from making a terrible mistake." "I'm not sure I did it for the right reasons." "Does that matter? Good can come from imperfect motivations." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. I could hear birds singing, wind chimes tinkling, the distant sound of traffic. "Can I ask you something?" Margaret said. "Do you regret it? Everything you did?" I thought about that question. Had thought about it every day for 6 months. "I regret how far I went," I said finally. "I regret becoming someone who could methodically destroy lives. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret refusing to be a victim." "That's honest." "Therapy helps," I said with a small smile. Margaret laughed. "It does. I've started going too. For the grief. For the guilt about Tyler. For everything. The guilt isn't yours to carry." "I know. But I'm his mother. I can't help but wonder where I went wrong, what I could have done differently." "You loved him. That wasn't wrong." "I enabled him. That was." We watched the sunset deepen from orange to purple to deep blue. The world transitioning from day to night, sound to peaceful quiet. "What will you do now?" Margaret asked. "Live," I said simply. "Move forward. Try to be better than I was. Try to be better than they were. That's all any of us can do." I still hear everything now. Every conversation. Every whisper. Every sound I missed for 6 years. But I've learned to choose what I listen to. What I let affect me. What I let go. Jake sends me an email every month, always the same. "I'm sorry." I don't respond, but I don't block him either. Maybe someday I'll reply. Maybe not. Jessica reached out recently asking if we could meet again. I said maybe in a few months. I'm not ready yet. Might never be ready. Rachel's trial ended. She took a plea deal, 8 years in federal prison. Her lawyer argued that she'd helped people who couldn't afford health care, that her intentions were good even if her methods were illegal. The judge wasn't swayed. Tyler's trial is still ongoing. Multiple charges, multiple jurisdictions. Sarah thinks he'll get 15 to 20 years when it's all done. He'll be middle-aged when he gets out, if he gets out. Sometimes I feel guilty about that. About the magnitude of what I set in motion. Other times I remember sitting at that table, deaf and trusting, while they laughed at me. While they plotted to use me. While they treated my disability as a joke. And the guilt fades. Dr. Chen says I'm making progress. That the fact I can feel both guilt and anger is healthy, means I'm processing rather than suppressing. I still don't know if what I did was right. I know it was effective. I know it was thorough. I know it was devastating. But right? That's harder to say. What I do know is this. I refuse to be a victim. I refuse to let them get away with cruelty disguised as friendship. I refuse to let my disability be weaponized against me. Whether that makes me a hero or a villain probably depends on who's telling the story. I'm just trying to be human. Complicated, flawed, capable of both mercy and wrath. And I'm learning to live with the sound of my own conscience. Some nights it whispers. Some nights it screams. But I hear it. Clear as day. And I'm finally learning to listen.